Welcome back to Finger Lakes. Today we are going to talk sports now. I'm sure everybody is super excited and or very upset to talk about Bills pretty much getting smoked at home. So Nate Sharman is here, and so is Jim Sinicropi. Welcome, guys. Let's hear about some sports.
Yeah, smoked is an understatement, right? You know, Bengals 27, Bills 10. Not the ending that Bills fans saw. We knew that this game could have been a loser for the Bills. You know, this was playing against a tough Cincinnati team that's been here before, but we didn't really expect that showing out of the Bills. Just kind of got manhandled up and down the field, in my opinion.
Not all of us expected it, Nate.
No, I didn't. No, like I said, I thought they could lose, but I didn't think they would get just blown out of their own building.
Yeah, that's true. But I've been saying the past week or two on this show that the Bills aren't as good as people think they are. And it's not that I root for the Bills, but if you look at what they brought to the table, it's no better than last year. Matter of fact, it's a little worse. Von Miller, we talked about not being there is a huge thing.
Yeah, that probably doesn't. I mean, I've seen that a lot of that discourse on Twitter and stuff.
Their secondary is
losing by 17. There's one or two players aren't really going to change it. You really gotta have a better game plan and on all aspects of the side of the game. So
no running game, which we saw was important.
I mean, they abandoned the running game in the second quarter. They didn't even try.
Yeah.
I mean, you're down 14. They almost acted like they were. Yeah. They needed to throw it in the fourth quarter, but there's still plenty of game left at that point.
Was it more coaching at that point? Because it seemed more like a bad plan.
On the offensive side, absolutely. You know, that's something I've been banging the drum all year with Ken Dorsey, the first-year offensive coordinator for the Bills. I haven't liked the way he's called games all season, and this is just, you know, you saw the discourse on Twitter. I'll talk about again. You know, with you're talking about Ken Dorsey. You know, they put up the Madden verticals, right? You know, this is all he's got. He just throws it down the field, and I think that's interesting. Part of that might be on Josh Allen too, but you didn't really see a lot of that last year. So definitely part of that offensively wasn't good. Defensively wasn't good either. Leslie Frazier struggled last night too on the defensive side. So, yeah, for me, I've always blamed the offense more than the defense this year. So I'll continue to do that for this game.
Do we think
10 points is not enough? You know, they haven't scored that least all year. That's the least amount they've scored. So
the Allen injury, do we feel like there may be something more to that injured arm of his than the organization has led on this year? No. I mean, since it happened in week 6, he's literally been a different quarterback by the numbers.
He doesn't have the weapons that Joe Burrow has at his disposal.
Not even close, right?
No. That's valid.
You know, you look at, I think that Stephon Diggs is obviously great for the Bills. They picked him up so they'd have that number one guy, but he demands the ball a little too much. You know, and not say he's not a team player. I really like Stephon Diggs, but he complains when he doesn't get the ball,
right?
Or he doesn't get it thrown that way, and so that probably factors into Ken Dorsey's play calling a little bit. But you know, you look at that game, and there was a ball that Gabe Davis dropped that was at a crucial time when maybe the Bills might have been able to remain in the game, and hit him right in the hands, you know, and he dropped it. And so, you know, I don't know. It's tough to say, well, the Bills need to now look at getting a better number 2 receiver.
Oh, for sure.
Because Gabe Davis last year and in big games has previously just been great. But
yeah, playoff Gabe is something they've called him. You know, last year in the Chiefs game, he had 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. So you're thinking all offseason, you're like, this guy's going to make a step. This guy's going to be awesome. And then this year he's been, a disappointment. You could take a look at his yardages and stuff, and he's got pretty good numbers, really, and all realistic for a number 2 receiver. But like Jim said, you know, in the big moments, he's not been able to make plays.
But yeah, a lack of a running game in the big games. You know, if you look at the way that San Francisco eventually beat Dallas last night, it was when they just committed to the run and grounded out. You know, with Christian McCaffrey and Mitchell down the stretch, just run after run after run.
Right.
And
the running game wasn't bad this year. It was better than last year.
But it wasn't very good Sunday.
Right.
No. Are we concerned about the outburst, I guess, between Diggs and Allen on the sideline, and then Diggs just kind of hightailing it out after the game and having to be brought back to the locker room and then taken off again?
I'm a little torn by that because
agreed.
It's something, you know, you take a look. He's a leader on the team. He's a captain. So I think part of that, you know, being at the press conference is important in a way. You know, you saw Josh Allen go to the presser and answer questions and be very captain-like. But at the other side of the coin, you know, Diggs is that fire competitor. You know, he's that guy that's gonna do stuff that may not look great, but you talk to any of his teammates and they're okay with it. Every single one of them. They asked questions to a bunch of different guys last night, Sean McDermott, even the coach, and everyone's okay with it. So I'm really torn on that, Josh. What do you think about it, Jim?
Well, I always get a little annoyed when I see a wide receiver, and not say that Stefon Diggs is a prima donna or anything, but some of these wide receivers that act that way, it's like, okay, buddy, look at your offensive and defensive linemen who, every single player in hand-to-hand combat, with each other.
Right.
And, you're running up and down the field, minimal contact, trying to get off the line of scrimmage maybe, but, you're not like, he's not going to make, if we threw the ball to Stefon Diggs more, that wasn't going to make the difference last night. I just think football is a consummate team game, I mean, you got 11 guys both sides of the ball, and so when anybody other than the quarterback draws too much attention to themselves on a football team, I think it's a little annoying. But I'm not really knocking Stefon Diggs. I think he's obviously a guy that's in place for next year, but you wonder what the Bills can do, because they don't got a lot of money to shop with.
No, they have no cap room.
And you're gonna go with, I was a little upset when they got rid of Zach Moss, although I guess he's not really gonna be a true number one. He did all right with Indianapolis,
right?
Trade, I guess, but so you got Cook and Singletary.
Singletary be gone too. I mean, he's a free agent, and they're not gonna. I would be surprised if they brought him back.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe they look in the draft for some diamond in the rough in the late round, in the middle rounds. But defensively, is Von Miller going to be back? Because they were a different team in the beginning of the year when Von Miller was there. But as far as Josh Allen not being as good as Joe Burrow or not being as good as Patrick Mahomes, I don't agree with that. I think Josh Allen is fine. He's your quarterback. I think he can get you there. Still relatively young. But with every team, there's a window. And you got to wonder, next year is going to be crucial for the Bills. Are you going to progress? Are you going to, stay the same or get worse? Because that's the way it works. 3 years ago, the Bengals weren't a very good team, and now look at them.
Right.
And so when another team, steps into that role, other teams fall out of it. So are the Bills going to step up next year and be better, or are they going to be the same? Because the window will close.
Right.
Well, I guess then this is a good time to ask this question then. Obviously, looking at their chances even next year in just the AFC East, if, say, a Lamar Jackson winds up in Miami, obviously we don't know if something like that is going to happen, but the way things are in Baltimore, it's one of the ideas that's being tossed around. If the Jets or the Dolphins make any kind of improvement, could they not give Buffalo a run for their money in the division next year?
They did
if
this
Buffalo
year,
doesn't have a chance to really improve on the offensive side of the ball, because that's really that's really where they need to improve is offense. You need to be able to put up 30 to 40 points to beat a Kansas City or to beat a Cincinnati.
Right, for sure. And this year the Jets and the Dolphins beat them. And then they're not even. You speak about Lamar Jackson, they have rumors that he could go to the Jets or something like that. Who knows with that? That's a whole nother situation. But I want to go back to that window, because I think that's so important to talk about, because, Joe Burrow talked about before the game, when's your window? And he says, as long as I'm here, this is the window. And that's true. And I think that's true with Josh Allen too.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to look at, they're paying Josh Allen double next year of what they had to pay him this year, and they had to pay him last year. So, your window, so to speak, can really come early in that rookie contract with your quarterback, because you don't have to pay him that much.
And that's what Bills fans thought this year was.
Right, and that's what we thought.
It wasn't.
For sure. Yeah, it's I think they got to pay him upwards of $40 million next year, and so that just makes it so hard. They got to find a way to pay guys like Milano and Poyer, or not Milano and Poyer, Edmonds and Poyer, excuse me. Those, it's going to be hard to bring back both of those. Pretty much impossible to bring back both of them. They're going to have to make a really tough decision on bringing back one of them. So that's something that's going to be really difficult, and so there's going to be some really big question marks this offseason coming on.
And this is a fan base that has never experienced a Super Bowl title. They've been there 40 years in a row in the mid 80s and
90s
now, or mid 90s, right? And now this, like I said, we thought this was the year. They made the improvements. Beginning of the year started, they were favorites to win the Super Bowl at one point, maybe week 2 or 3 or 4. and
all season,
until something happened at the end of the season. I keep going back to the Von Miller injury, but it was probably more than that. And the red flags to me were the Miami games. Miami Bills should have cleaned at home in the first round.
Yeah,
they should have killed them, and so that to me just solidified it. That's why I bet the Bengals, despite the fact that I wanted the Bills to win. And then the other thing is it was in Highmark Stadium. The Bengals came into Highmark Stadium in the snow and just cleaned their clock. Worst game of the weekend. Well, the Giants-Eagles game too.
Yeah, what a disappointing weekend for upstate New York.
Yeah.
New York sports fans having a tough go of it today.
But you had to see it coming. I mean, in retrospect, even Bills fans had to see this coming.
I didn't see them getting blown the doors off them. I didn't see that coming. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
Well, maybe not.
I think that goes back to Cincinnati being kind of that Bengals team being a bit underrated in general. Like, I don't think people put the Bengals in the same category as the Chiefs, but I think as far as offensive production goes, I think they have to be right there.
And really credit to the Bengals too, because they were able to put the fact that they were selling AFC Championship tickets next week in Atlanta, which is something they always do. Even Cincinnati was selling tickets for a possible game in Cincinnati against Jacksonville. But they were able to put that as bulletin board material. Yeah. Zach Taylor, coach of the Bengals, was able to tell his team that they don't believe in us.
Right.
And there's nothing better that you can do as a head coach than to give your guys bulletin board material.
5.5 point underdogs.
Really, that too.
Like,
yes.
Who made that line?
Yes, and that's something that that's really, really good coaching in my mind.
Well, I mean, go back to last week. The same thing with the Dolphins game. It was a double-digit spread.
Yep.
And I mean, at no point during the game did it look like the Bills were playing like a team that was favored by double-digit points.
Vegas and the betting public was overvaluing Buffalo.
Yeah, that line was really interesting to me because the more people that bet the Bengals, it was still going towards the Bills.
Yeah.
You took a look I looked at the handle right before kickoff, and it was about 70% Bengal fans. So Vegas was kind of doing the thing, or 70% Bengal tickets, and so Vegas was doing the thing where they want you to bet the Bengals because they,
of course,
obviously, like Jim said, they would think the Bills are going to win, and so Vegas took a big hit last night with
third. That Miami game, third string quarterback. Coming up to Buffalo, that was a huge red flag. As poorly as the Bills closed that game out, but very disappointing. And looking at this weekend's games, I don't know who's got the edge.
Oh my God,
the Eagles. I think the Eagles are really good.
But how can? Yeah. I mean, the Eagles are really good, and I guess with Jalen Hurts coming back and performing well, it should cast any doubts away. From his injury or the fact that but I look at I thought since about maybe week 8 or 9 that San Francisco is the best team in the NFC, and but they got to go to Philadelphia now, and they have Brock Purdy, and Philadelphia has Jalen Hurts,
right?
But both defenses are great. And honestly, the last night's game, San Francisco won. It didn't play out too much differently than I thought. I figured San Francisco's defense would make 1 or 2 really big plays, and they had opportunities, especially at the end of the game when Greenlaw dropped the Dak Prescott pass he could took right in the end zone. A play like that turns that 1 touchdown game into a 2 or 3 touchdown game. That never really happened. There were a few interceptions.
A few.
But,
there should have been about 6 interceptions by the 49ers.
San Francisco make a big play, pick 6, something, but they still were able to win. But I don't know. I don't know about that game, and I don't know about the game on the other side because I got a lot of confidence in Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid.
I genuinely don't know what's going to be left of that leg
with his ankle. That
was
bad.
His ankle is not as clean as he tried to make it sound after. I mean, you saw him in the fourth quarter. He just was literally hobbling around like Pat Mahomes.
Look at Chad Henne though. He comes out off the bench and leads his team in 98-yard touchdown.
Of the weekend, pretty awesome. In my mind, is Chad Henne.
That's pretty cool.
It's a 3-point game.
Anything is possible.
They start in their own 3-yard line. He marches them down the field. Goes I think 7 to 10 on the drive. And next thing you know, they go into the locker room with a 2-score advantage. If that doesn't happen, or worse, Chad Henne does what a lot of guys would do in that situation and just kind of crumble. and give Jacksonville a chance to get the ball back and go into get the lead. And so Jacksonville's obviously a team to look at next year.
It's amazing how many young quarterbacks in the AFC. That's another thing with the Bills. You got to look at the AFC. You have so many, there are 4 or 5 good quarterbacks that are young.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it's a tough road for sure.
I think it showed in the Bills game. I have a lot of respect for Josh Allen. I think he's a great guy, but I don't know if he gets in his head too much, or when it came to these last few games, it looked like there was like a lack of connection between the whole team.
For sure.
He was second guessing so much. I was getting so frustrated because I felt like he was holding on to the ball so long, like he was ready to throw a pass, and then he like second guessed it, and I just felt like there wasn't that connection that you saw in the beginning of the season. And I hope maybe in the off season he works extra hard, they get that camaraderie back in the locker room, which I don't know if there isn't, but it looks like it.
About the camaraderie, but they
it
also
looks
just
like
came
it.
off the whole Mar Hamlin situation that was supposed to bring them together as a family, and I think it did a little bit, but
it did.
Maybe that overshadowed a little some of their deficiencies. But I don't think Josh Allen's the problem. I'd take Josh Allen as the quarterback of my team.
I don't think he's a problem. I think maybe he just needs another year under his belt to get a little more confidence and get a little bit more.
I mean, if he's got better weapons next year, then maybe he won't. I know, he threw a lot of interceptions the second half of the year, and that I've been giving the cop out as this injury. I think there's more to the arm than was let on during the regular season, because they couldn't really afford to, especially with the way the defense had played. They couldn't really afford to lose offensive production. So I think Josh Allen kind of like just played through it. And, it kind of feels like some of the things that he did.
For that for sure. But if you give me Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and even going further beyond that, Tyler Boyd,
Hayden Hurst was good last night.
Better than Dustin Knox, you could argue. Joe Mixon, obviously better than Devin Singletary, and
Ryan's probably better than
Cook. So if you look at all the offensive skill positions, that Burrow's got more to work with. And Jamar Chase is better than Stephon Diggs, right? A lot of Bills fans might not want to say it, but man, Jamar Chase is unbelievable.
Both in the top 5.
Yeah, both in the top 5. But if you had to pick one,
Bengals win this weekend. Are they now the number 1 team in the AFC? Permanently.
Yeah, back-to-back Super Bowls, beating Kansas City in Kansas City, which another thing, I think the NFL was excited about this neutral field championship game possibility, and I think that it would have been a test maybe for maybe making that the norm going forward. Instead of home field advantage for AFC and NFC, you have neutral site games. I think they wanted to see that happen as a test. So that's not going to happen now. It's going to be in Kansas City, and if Cincinnati goes to Arrowhead and beats the Chiefs again, or no, who do they beat? They beat the Bills.
The Bengals beat the Chiefs.
The Chiefs, the Bills.
The Chiefs beat the Chiefs in the divisional round. Right. 13 seconds.
Oh,
everybody thought that was the de facto AFC championship, when in reality the Bengals were the better team again last year. It's interesting.
So it'll be a real interesting next week. I don't know. I don't have any idea what's going to happen though. I really don't. Like this week, I felt pretty good about the bets I placed and what I thought was going to happen. And it's satisfying to think something and then see it play out. But this week, I have no clue.
It's definitely going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Can we put